Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do, and we have got a little more. Coming up shortly, it's Jake versus the Internet, wherein we discuss the issues of the day and invite people who disagree with our local house Jake to call in and voice your opinion. I'm looking forward to the show. I hope you are too. We're vertical. If you're hearing this, you are alive. Welcome to WYCD Wicked. Tinkerbell, look at you. Hello, my friend. Or should I say Punkerbell? The nefarious dark ass. Reference frame, great to see you. Jake, you're a glutton for punishment. Let's go. Yes, indeed. I want to wrestle with some ideas. You know what? I'm not even looking. I'm looking to learn from you, my fellow Earthlings, in the year 2025. What are the topics of the day? Well, I still have a bunch of unused topics from our last couple of shows, but you know what? Down. I would like to hear from you. That's 2 down. I would like to hear from you. Give me some ideas. What are some things you would like to hear my opinion on that you might consider debating or, discussing? Yeah, you're not wrong. You know what? That's enough of that. What are some topics you'd like to consider discussing? You can toss them in the comments now, and we might talk about them. I'll pick. I'll sneak them. In the meantime, we have some stances that we could pitch. For example, right-wing rhetoric causes political violence. Anyone hiding the Epstein files must be impeached. Free healthcare is good for the economy. Also something I believe. We actually got some response for that one. Conservative hosts work for the Epstein class. Uh-oh. We should expand public services and budgets. The U.S. government should not hire mercenaries. We should restore the fairness doctrine. All of these are things we could discuss, or comments brought up by you. What is it you think we should discuss? This one's almost a layup these days, but I'm going to get us started by discussing the fact that I believe right wing rhetoric causes political violence. Here's why. I'm being specific to right wing rhetoric, but I got to tell you, I got a twist coming at the end of this you might not be ready for. Left wing rhetoric is peaceful. The most radical left wingers that you'll meet in 2025 might radically discuss why it's important not to harm people, but they're not going to be coming up with plans to harming people. Their radical plans are to prevent harm from happening. And it's important to understand that if you are a progressive, you're not trying to prevent harm from happening to just your people. That's the crucial difference between what makes somebody a progressive and anything else. If you are a progressive, you are trying to make sure harm is avoided by everyone, that bad things don't happen to anyone. You are doing things based on the broad principles at play, not based off of some grudge that you hold against a group this time around. Why is that? Why do progressives behave that way? Well, let's look at their counterparts. Conservatives were furious with Muslims in 2003. Broadly, just Muslims, not even really Muslims. It was really brown folks. And I'm not trying to make a caricature of the right wing here. I'm talking about like actual people I met. Like they'd see somebody in a turban. And if you know anything about the cultures where turbans are worn, you would have known that in the modern era in 2003 back then, the person they were looking at was a Sikh, Seik, I believe, not a Muslim. And yet, you would have that person in a turban get harassed, get called a danger, get called yada, yada, yada. So it's not like it would have been okay to harass somebody for being Muslim, but they didn't even get their bigotry correct. Because their anti-religious sentiments clashed up against their anti anything but white sentiments. And well, not black folks did that too, actually, at the time. The puff sleeves are I'm delighted. You know, buddy. There's more to that costume, animation-wise, than has yet been revealed, and I'm looking forward for an excuse to play it. But the tutu is tactical. So that is why I believe left-wing, progressive at least, rhetoric does not cause violence, because most of it is a preaching against violence of any sort, both literal physical violence and violence of the state. And even on a less tangible level, the violence of a workforce to make you do your job as opposed to entice you to do your job. For example, dangling your family's lives in the form of the health care that you must get through your job, practically speaking. We are against violence in all forms, and especially and including gun violence. We hate it. We don't want it to happen anymore. Left-wing political rhetoric, in fact, offers the answer as well. So when I say rhetoric, I don't just mean what is being said, but how it is being said. What is being called for, but the manner in which it's being called for. And I, as I was saying, that I must correct it. I guess our rhetoric isn't the answer in and of itself. But what we're calling for is gun reform. Because I want to remind everybody it whether or not this thing that we're talking about is true, right-wing rhetoric causing the violence. That's my opinion. That's my hunch. I think there's evidence to bear that out, but it it, it doesn't matter. It wouldn't let me put it the other way. It wouldn't matter if left-wing rhetoric did cause political violence in terms of the solution. Just like it doesn't matter that the right-wing words don't matter in terms of the solution. The solution is gun reform. The solution is to make sure that both of our groups, right and left wing, let's say, have minimum tens of millions of people amongst them. There is no population of tens of millions of people that doesn't have a few sociopaths in it, that doesn't have a few people who had an undiagnosed traumatic brain injury at some point in life, and the lobe in their brain that makes them appreciate empathy or whatever has shriveled, and they're going to go out and do something unpredictable. That's my point. You can't predict the behavior of tens of millions of people down to the individual. You just can't. So you've got to build society with that reality in mind. You have to acknowledge we're not in the days of breech loading single shot firearms anymore. We're not in the days where a bullet is accurate up to a whopping 70 yards. Actually, I was saying that like it's nothing. That is actually 70 yards is you know, 3/4 of a football field. Come on, that's a long shot. They're way beyond even that. This most recent shot was a 200-yard assassination. In the book of American shame, that's gonna go down as one of the more impressive feats that shamed us, that 200-yard shot. The technology has advanced to the point that the thing is no longer the thing. Your right to bear arms was written when the arms we were discussing were like cell phones in the late 90s versus today. It's a different device, called the same thing, different device. Right-wing rhetoric, on the other hand. I don't know what it is if it's not calling for violence. I don't know what it is if you take out all the things that right wingers say left wingers do, but right wingers actually do. If you take out all that stuff, you're left with just nothing. I mean, right wing rhetoric is almost pure hate speech. And I don't just like I'm not trying to get you on a technicality. I mean, what are they doing if not preaching against the existence of a group? You have whole swaths. There's whole channels devoted entirely to this. A group of people that conservatives are supposed to be goaded into hating, and all the excuses they've managed to find or cobble together or dream up for why you should hate them. I never hear right winger. Now, look, this is why it's a call-in show. I might never hear any decency come out of the lips of a right wing talker. I want that record corrected. If I'm wrong about this, and I may be wrong about this, tell me. Offer your insight, your take on things. I will give you an example of what I'm talking about. Brian Kilmeade just said, like Friday, I believe it was, that homeless people should be killed. He said, involuntary lethal execution, comma, kill him. That's what Brian Kilmeade said on national television. He didn't lose his job. What is that if not violent rhetoric? And you might say, well, they weren't talking about Kirk. No, that's the point. They weren't talking about Kirk. They were talking about other stuff where they didn't have to remember, oh, we're not supposed to be violent right now because we're trying to say the other side is violent so we can go kill the other side. It's pure violence. It's pure evil, in my opinion. But you know what? Help me out. I don't want to think of Brian Kilmeade as evil. Hard to argue, but if you can convince me or at least give me a reason why he might not be, it would make my life better. Yeah, maybe instead of choosing a party, left or right, choose grace and respect. Now, Stephen Powell, that is fantastic advice. And I would say that from this moment forward in the United States, you can cease looking at political parties as a very serious measure of who a candidate is. I am somewhat torn between saying we all just run for either party or we only ever vote for people who are independent. Somewhere in there lies the correct path, but it's ludicrous that either of these parties exist at this point in history. Both of them have demonstrated they are nothing but schemes to drain money from America and Americans. I think it's the next step in the plan, says Nick Sabia. Yeah, I mean, we got to get rid of them. Even if, from my perspective, the best possible thing happens and all Republicans just say, "Oh, this is an embarrassment. I'm going to go become a hermit in the mountains rather than bother people ever again." And all Democrats win all the seats there are. I would still, at the end of that 100% victory for Democrats, turn around and say, well, now let's get rid of the Democrats. Now we're clear to do the real work, which is disband this party entirely. Because it's just wretched. Pinkerbell, I would expect there to be a lot of random automated censorship turned on broadly across YouTube, because there are bots out there right now. I don't have evidence of this time. There's evidence of it last time, but I would assume that this time we're going to discover once again that they come from either Russia or China. And do hold it against them, but understand that our government does the same thing in other countries. But when things are bad, the bots will try to make them worse. And as a result, not because YouTube is run by decent people, it's not. It's run by monsters like every other major corporation, but YouTube doesn't want to get sued. YouTube doesn't want its market value to decrease, so they're probably turning up the automation. Stephen Powell, if the country is a melting pot, and that is our strength, embrace it. Find the middle ground and respect as you do in any great relationship. Personal, private, political, doesn't matter. Respect, 100% agreed. Gang, I'm talking to people who have yet to use a... You know what? I'm going to make this cruel joke right now just because of the context we're in. I'm talking to people who seem to be based in reality, and therefore I assume it's all lefties. But if I'm wrong, do call in. How about this, gang? You tell me, not something you want to discuss, but you think is going to get right-wingers when they see this on the bottom, is going to get them passionate enough to click and call in. What do you reckon? What's something we could do? I almost think Trump's, you know what? I think I got one. Yeah. think I got one. Yeah. Um, let me read HBX's comment though. What? You're not wrong. What if your opposition strategically uses your respect as a weapon against you while also showing no respect in return? I think your respect, if it's being used as a weapon against you, you've let it go out of your control. You can be respectful to somebody you are fully fighting against, and you can make their lack of respect in return, their underappreciation for a gentleman's behavior, a weakness of theirs. If they're thrashing and essentially trying to change the conversation, or just trying to make you look foolish for having participated with them, you just address it for what it is, but crucially, you don't let it get to you. Don't let it phase you. You just wait for them to finish their ranting and say, "So this is the childishness of who you're dealing with. This is the seriousness of the person who's trying to sway you right now. They are unable to carry on an adult conversation on adult terms with adult methods. All they can do is fall back on, I would say, preteen level insults. Really disappointing. I'd like to think that they're capable of better, but the fact that they can't tell in this moment that it's a time to be better people and that America needs leadership tells you they're probably not made out of the kind of stuff that you need a leader to be made out of. So don't vote for them. Do vote for me. Or don't listen to what they're saying about this thing. Do listen to what I'm saying about this thing. You know, you turn it on its head. But the way you get there is not to have like to be aware of what words you're going to say a month ahead of time. It's to know that when you are confronted with these things, you just don't blink. You don't let it affect you. You just immediately don't be impressed with it. Don't in your mind. If you catch yourself going, "Oh no, they're being rude. Oh no, I look foolish because they've insulted me." You're thinking about it wrong. Knock that off. You're here to have a conversation. Why didn't you insult them? Because it's not good. It's not useful. It doesn't do anything. It's rude. It's abrasive. People don't like it. So you can just be aware of the fact that they're being foolish and then act like it. Don't yourself act like a kid who's yelling at another kid. You act like the teacher who's in the room while the other teacher is getting stuff, and you just stand there and say, I see the way you carry yourself. Everybody else see the way they carry themselves? Okay." I wouldn't think they are very knowledgeable about what they're talking about because they've resorted to insults. Yeah, that's probably true. Your respect is your crown. Can't ever let them take that from you, regardless of belief. Keep your chin up. Hell yeah. The reference frame. Struggling to see what is the middle ground between lethal injection for the homeless and respect slash helping the homeless. Yeah, this is compromise is not inherently good. Compromise can be good, and people who are willing to compromise in certain situations, uh, that's a good thing to be willing to do that. But it is not inherently good. When you have Brian Kilmeade out there saying lethal injection for the homeless is where his mind goes. And crucially, in that clip, he doesn't just say lethal injection for the homeless, but I mean, the people around him go, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's possible that somebody on the left could say something as stupid, as callous, as cruel as lethal injections for the homeless, involuntary. So hunt them down, grab them, hold them down, and kill them. That's what Brian Kilmeade was suggesting we do. But if they'd have said that on a progressive show surrounded by progressives, people would not have just gone along with it. The other hosts would have heard that, processed the information that they were saying, and immediately said, what? What are you talking about? That's insane. That's cruel. You don't mean that. Surely you don't mean that. That's what the reaction would have been. Why wasn't the reaction that from the other conservative hosts on Kilmeade's show? I'll tell you this. I don't think it's because they agreed with his sentiment. I don't even think Brian Kilmeade really wants that to happen. I don't think he wants to live in a country where that is happening. The reason the rest of his hosts did not jump in to correct him in the moment was because they were confused and startled. That's what I think. And I don't mean that they were confused about what he said. I mean, they were confused about whether this was the type of cruelty that they were going for today. They already do stuff like this constantly. They'll say horrible things about trans folks. And then they'll walk out of the studio and look around, and nobody will be screaming at them, and nobody will be throwing things at them, and they'll say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got away with saying that. I basically said they were less than human. In fact, no, I literally said they were less than human. On Fox News' air, people have said trans folks are less than human. That's what they've said. The most horrible, evil, violence-causing intentionally rhetoric possible. There's a reason we refer to most of these folks as stochastic terrorists. That is what they are doing. And in that moment, when Brian Kilmeade went too far, the reason people didn't jump in to say this is wrong is because they didn't have their little checklist with them. They hadn't been briefed on it. In other words, they don't actually hold the opinions they say. They're not actually being guided by a set of ethics that's personal to them or morals that's personal to them. They haven't wrestled with the idea of how to run a society. What is the best way we can all prosper? How do we be fair? They're not wondering about these things. They're looking at a bullet card of talking points. That's all. And when Kilmeade went off script and went a little too far, while he was improvising cruelty, they didn't have the tools in their own minds to process what he was saying. Because right-wing rhetoric is supposed to be violent. This stuff snuck in past the other hosts, the other people that were there, because they already know. Look at how they're behaving. They already know right-wing rhetoric is violent, is cruel. It is everything they say that left-wing rhetoric is. It's everything they say left-wingers are trying to do. In reality, that is what the standard right-wingers, Fox News hosts, are advocating for. And we live in a dark system. We live in a system where right-wingers advocate for violence, and they advocate for the total disillusionment of the government and putting it into private hands. And they rely on losing to the left from time to time. They need a Democrat administration from time to time because the country needs to be functional. They need a minimum amount of maintenance done on the country. They need us to pass bills that their people are trained to hate because they don't understand. They need us to beat them in votes from time to time so they can turn around and say, look what I did for you, my home state. Look what I brought home for you. This thing I voted against, but I won't tell you I voted against it. I'll simply point out the fact that the bill passed while I was in Congress. Not that I spoke against the bill, not that I voted against the bill, not that I did everything in my power to stop it, But now that it's passed and it is going to help us, I'm going to turn around and ask you to thank me for it. That's what they need. But you know what? The worst Democrats also need Republicans to win from time to time, because the worst Democrats are what we call neoliberals. All Republicans are neoliberals, but the worst Democrats are as well. They are operating of the belief, with the belief, I should say, that business is the end goal for all government, and that government should essentially be a way to fund major corporations and to make nobility out of CEOs, to give them rights you don't have. They already have a justice system. Oh my God. They already have a justice system that you don't have. It's different for them when they break the law than it is for you. That's a two-tier justice system. Well, neoliberal Democrats, aka conservative Democrats, aka centrist Democrats, they need right-wingers to pass laws that make them more powerful, make them more money. So both of these parties, and by the way, the centrist Democrats are the main Democratic force right now. This is not, the progressives are not like MAGA within our party. MAGA controls the Republican Party, but the centrist Democrats control the Democratic Party. They require each other to win, to sustain their grift. And if you'd like all this to stop, I would encourage you vote progressive, but certainly stop voting for neoliberals. And understand the way this works, the reason why centrist Dems need right-wingers to win sometimes is because our rhetoric is not violent. Our rhetoric is, it presumes to have the interests of everybody in mind. We're not siphoning off one group and saying, this other group is a danger to you, and we're going to deal with them by doing this. It's got to appeal to a crowd of people with, kindness in their hearts. If you're talking about what's the motivation of a right-wing voter versus a left-wing voter, it's what is in your heart, what is in your soul. A left-wing voter, kindness. A right-wing voter, fear. Usually hatred, but that's just a warped form of fear. It's you're screamed at by people constantly who tell you that the world's out to get you, just you, and your family, just your family. And that everybody else has to suffer so that you don't maybe suffer. Everybody else has to definitely suffer so that you don't maybe suffer. And oh, by the way, a rich person is going to get much richer. Don't worry about how. Don't worry about that. Don't look too closely at that. You got to worry about yourself and your family, after all. I just told you they're in danger. Yeah, I'm going to make a little piece of the pie. Yeah. So, all right, look. So these brown people, right? They're hunting your family basically at all times. And the thing I'm going to do, I'm going to snatch them up off the street and I'm going to throw them into a prison. There. I'll save you, right winger. Now you don't have to be afraid. Oh, that prison is owned by a private corporation, is it? Oh, the person that owns the prison is a friend of the person who wrote the policy to snatch up people and throw them in prison. Oh, they just made $145 million. Okay. That's right-wing rhetoric. Get you afraid so that you'll allow a cruel thing to happen to somebody else. And that cruel thing always results in money going to a very rich person. It's never a neutral proposition. Always, always, always. It's a scam to get more money. The tariffs, for example, we're going to suffer horribly. We talked about political violence. Here we go. We're going to suffer horribly. There's going to be a lot of poor people. There is going to be violence. At the very least, some degree of starvation. People who are already rich are going to make a fortune. because you can buy tariff debt essentially. If there is going to be an argument about whether or not a tariff ought to have been placed down, and given the fact that there were universal tariffs placed down, what rich people can do, you have to be extraordinarily rich to get into this business, but what you could do is buy millions and millions of dollars of tariff debt and give everybody who believes they were wrongly accused, like 10 cents on the dollar, a dime for every dollar they were charged too much. And you buy their debt so that when the government declares, you know what, we were wrong about this tariff. We shouldn't have we shouldn't have done that. They'll pay you back. And suddenly, for every 10 cents the rich person invested, they get 90 cents. They get 9 times their money back. That's a massive profit margin. Oh, and oh, by the way, the person who initially paid for that is the only one who suffers. So you're a farmer. You get a tariff that is going to cripple your farm. A rich man comes up to you and says, "All right, I'm going to give you 10 cents back for every dollar you paid for those tariffs." You look at your finances, you say, "You know what? That's not enough to keep my farm going, but nothing is enough to keep my farm going. And maybe that 10% of my money back I can use to pay for a semester of a trade school and maybe at the age of 50 or whatever, try to start a new profession if I sell everything else as well." So that farm goes under. That person loses their career because they only had 10 cents on the dollar for money they spent that Trump just arbitrarily decided they needed to spend. And then years later, the government says, "Ah, all right. All right, we'll pay back the money." But they don't pay it back to the farmer anymore. Now they pay it back to the rich man. It's worth pointing out that to my knowledge, every single shooter over the last year has been a right winger. And I'm not trying to say we should, oh, we got to go find right wingers and tape them to a chair or something. But I want to point out what happens to that farmer. What happens to that farmer's son who maybe was a massive Trump supporter, who was all about him in high school, and then he gets out of high school and the tariff thing happens and the farm goes under and he watches somebody else make a fortune. He watches his father become a lesser version of himself. The home where he grew up goes away. He still has the guns. Feeling betrayed by the people he supported because he was told to blindly support them, because he was told to be on guard for brown people, not a man in a suit. That's the sort of person that winds up making the worst kind of headlines. That's the sort of person that winds up on the roof of a school when a political talker is politically talking. It's not just the right wing rhetoric that causes political violence. It is also the reality that the right wing builds. But right wing rhetoric absolutely causes political violence. We're 40 minutes into this thing. No disagreements yet. Well, I cannot blame you. I've been basically spot on. The reference frame. Well, hello. Proof it always was state-controlled media peddling Republican propaganda. Pinkerbell. Oh, here we go. Pinkerbell. They sent charisma suck JD Vance to host Charlie's show tonight, which I found hilarious. I almost want to hate watch, but the hate is too sincere. Mm. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm-mm. I had a good one. Looking for topics we can discuss with right wingers. Right winger, you know what? I'm going into Discord. We gonna do this proper. Oh, it's my pal Pink. She sent me a message. Aw, no problem, buddy. Hold on, gang. I'm searching for the thing. I'm getting us right wingers. Yeah, this isn't good. Dell, good to see you. Bet you just dance sitting on the couch. I danced when I ran out of medication for ADD. I danced on an airplane for like 4 hours. It, it was that or literally go insane. You can't see. Literally go insane fiddling with things. All right. I'm jumping in to no, she's live. God dang, how do I get all right. I'm not proud of this, but I'm gonna do this. Kirk, comma, Fox, comma, et al. Jake versus the internet. All right. I put it in the title now. I put it in the title. Oh, Jay. Okay, good. We're still back. Look, and sitting is not sitting. Sit is spelled with 4 letters. He couches is what I'm saying. Uh, although there was evidence that he was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. What do you call the thing? Okay, he was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein and some stools. What's a small little couch? What do you call that? What's the thing that you just put your feet on? Is that a duvet? I don't know. Don't sit or dance on the couch if Vance was in the room earlier, or at least wear gloves. A love seat. No, the little thing for just your footsies, though. Ottoman. Thank you. Thank you both. Well done. An ottoman. JD Vance is a couch fucker. Oh, you know what? Maybe I can make that. I'm going to make the case that JD Vance is a couch fucker. Why not? Do we have any actual evidence that he's the couch? No. No. Just his too strong denial. That's all. Let's talk facts. When we looked at the initial evidence for JD Vance fucking couches, it was discovered that it was in fact just a joke from the internet. Someone was just teasing because he seems like the sort of person that would do that and write about it in his book because he wouldn't realize how weird it was because he's not like a full human being. He's like 3/4 of one. I don't mean do violence against him. I just mean don't be ableist. He doesn't feel all the feelings that humans do. He's some sort of a lizard creature. And it seemed like the sort of thing he would do. But in fact, we found there is no evidence. But his stringent denial that he fucks couches, the fact that he doesn't leave it alone, and frankly, the bedroom eyes I've seen him give to some furniture makes me wonder if it may in fact be a truth accidentally discovered. If you disagree, though, do call in. You know what doesn't lead to political violence? Memes about someone on a couch. Yeah. Well, I gotta tell you, gang, I even compromised my morals. And and I didn't get anything yet. I'm gonna think about a better way to hook these people rather than make you watch me live try to figure out how I'm gonna get these folks interested. I'll either just do a much longer stream next time, and next time might even be tonight, but either a much longer stream next time or uh, just prepare some stuff for lefties. Although, surely there's things that lefties disagree about. Anybody think we shouldn't have universal health care? Probably not. Oh well, swing and a miss. We'll see you next time.